Michelle Prince, founder and CEO of Performance Publishing Group, making a difference one story at a time. We'll be shining the light on successful founders, entrepreneurs, business owners, and leaders that are getting results and making a difference. We'll talk about how they built their businesses, are creating movements, and leveraging the power of authority in their own lives. Be sure to stick around to the end of the show, and we'll reveal how you can be our next guest. Let's get started. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Power of Authority Spotlight. I'm your host, Michelle Prince, and I love helping to shine the light on business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, founders, people that are doing things. They're building businesses, and they're making a difference along the way. Today's guest, we're going to be diving into the world of lead generation and email and all kinds of fun things like that. But first, this episode is brought to you by Performance Publishing Group. If you've ever thought about writing a book, now is the time. Your book is the greatest business card you'll ever have. So if you want to get started, go to performancepublishinggroup.com, grab a free strategy call, and we'll help you get on your way to becoming an author. Again, that's performancepublishinggroup.com. All right, let me introduce you to my guest today, Jennie Wright. She is an expert in email list growth and lead generation with over a decade of experience helping business owners achieve their marketing goals. She is the creator of the List Injection Method, a system that uses inbound attraction and permission marketing to help clients and audiences generate leads. With a track record of building over 375 plus list builds, Jennie has a deep understanding of the essential steps to creating events that not only attract ready buyers, but also build trust and engagement with audiences. Jennie's mission is to empower business owners with intelligent and authentic marketing, lead generation, and business growth strategies that drive bottom line results. She's a sought-after speaker and consultant who inspires audiences with her expertise, passion, and practical advice. Her website is jennywright.com. Jennie, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on too, because let's be honest. I mean, who doesn't deal with well, I shouldn't put it that way. I don't love email marketing and lead generation because it's just, we all have our wheelhouses, but the importance of it, I mean, without email marketing and lead generation, we wouldn't be in business. So I love this topic. But let me I always like to start with the backstory too. So tell me a little bit about your background and how on earth did you get into the business of helping other businesses grow through email marketing?
By complete and utter accident. I was working in investor relations and communications in the gold mining industry.
Oh,
Yeah. So I was doing that job and I loved it. If you know anything about startups and gold mining, they get a lot of money really quick. They do a bunch of things. And if they can't find the gold or if they can't get into production, the company folds.
yeah.
So there was things like that happening, and I ended up leaving the company. I was lucky to have some savings, and the company obviously, sort of took care of me a little bit there. And I had about a 6-month runway to try and figure out what I was going to do next. And I did not want to go back into corporate if I could at all help it. I come from a family of entrepreneurs. And so my girlfriend's like, "Have you ever heard about virtual assistants?" I'm like, "Virtual what?" Like, all right, cool. We'll check this out. And that was I think that was 2012.
Yeah.
And you're not going to believe this, but just because I really wanted to sort of pay my dues and understand the inner workings of the online space, I set myself up on Fiverr.
Good for you though. Hey, it's a great place.
Yeah, I mean, you're making $4.33 a gig, whatever. But that's just to start off. And then I was, you do really well, hopefully, and you get bigger gigs and so on and so forth. And I mean, I was only on there for a couple of months before I was able to pull myself off of there and start working with clients on a regular basis. But I didn't come into this with a desire of, I'm going to go into this and I'm going to become the best, whatever. And I was a virtual assistant for almost 4.5 years. But I was probably one of the most knowledgeable marketing virtual assistants that people had. And they kept saying, you should be coaching, or you should be consulting, or you should be doing this and that. And I eventually moved into that. And then just recently, which is phenomenal, I can't even believe this is happening. I'm now a CMO fractionally in a bunch of different companies. And I can't even believe that's the arc.
Yeah.
So yeah, completely by accident, loving every minute of it.
Well, I love that story. I can so relate because actually I never sought out to be a publisher or help people with books. That was never, ever, ever in my on my radar even. So kind of an accidental business development
Yeah.
as well. But I remember those days of 2012. I actually started my business in 2009, and I had a virtual assistant when I started. I didn't even know what a virtual assistant was in 2000, when I first started.
Yeah.
But and just the concept of it was so unique back then, right?
Hmm.
But the thing is, we all need a virtual assistant of some to some level. But yours has evolved from just not just helping them in all things. It sounds like you really honed in on the marketing aspect of it because there's VA work in all different areas.
Yeah. Yeah. I was a technical VA.
Okay.
So in a marketing VA, I was not like a general assistant. I wasn't,
Okay.
posting people's blogs and stuff. I was a tech VA. I quickly realized I had a skill for conversion metrics on landing pages.
Wow.
So webinar landing pages, summits, uh, lead magnet landing pages. I was getting numbers that were ridiculous. I was getting like between 50 and 80% conversion rates on cold traffic.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was,
Talk about that. Because that's huge. Is that still a capable? Are you still? It was that something?
yes.
Okay, so let's talk about that because well, we all want our leads, but it seems sometimes to be. Do we overcomplicate it, Jenny? Or
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. Everybody overcomplicates it. There's two levers that happen. There's the overcomplication and then there's the underdevelopment.
okay,
Okay? So the underdevelopment side is we aggressively or over aggressively think that ChatGPT is going to solve all of our copywriting skills or needs and provide us the exact copy that people need to convert. By the way, no. I mean, we can get it if you properly prime your chat GPT, you can get within, I don't know, you can get it to like 75, 80%, but it still needs a human touch, in my opinion.
it does.
And conversion tactics for landing pages and such need a certain finesse with the language. So that's one thing. We underdo it there, but we overdo it on the complication of what should be on the page, what should I say, what should be in the lead magnet, and so on and so forth. So what I figured out, and this is honestly all by trial and error, and having a little bit of an understanding about how people buy and how
Mhm.
people buy into anything free, for sale, whatever. I noticed that people were setting up their landing pages in a way that made sense to them, but not to their prospective client.
Oh, wow.
So the thing that you thought should be on the page is not what your intended reader would want to see.
Mm,
Because, if you're neurodivergent, you're going to look at a landing page differently than somebody who's neurotypical.
mhm.
If you're detail oriented, you're going to look at the page differently than somebody who just likes to browse.
Wow.
And if you prefer to read, then you're going to struggle if you land on a landing page, it's all video.
Yeah.
So, how do you make sure that your landing page has everything for everybody, but not too much for nobody?
Right.
And so I feel like it's a little bit of a science. And when you can kind of crack that code, you can make landing pages that speak to those different audiences I just mentioned
Mhm.
and convert higher.
Wow. Is it possible to have a converting landing page without paying for traffic?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Right. Let's talk about that because I think most people, when they think, oh, okay, for example, let's say we're going to launch a digital course or a live
Sure.
event or something like that. And you have your own list that you've built up, right? But let's, through the years, think maybe your list may be cold, right? So you're
Mhm.
looking for new leads. So outside of your own list, what's a good way to get other people on your list without having to pay for leads?
Organic all the way. And the best organic strategy is leveraging other people's lists.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's either through creating an affiliate partnership with a bunch of different speakers or experts,
Mhm.
or hosting a series of either co branded or co created webinars, panels, and then maximizing it out in an online summit.
Okay.
So those are the best things, and that plays into the list injection method that you were mentioning in the bio, because then you're creating an injection of leads. So before you do some sort of a launch, if I can kind of pull us out a little bit, Lead magnets, the whole goal is to attract your ideal client, get them to register for whatever your freebie is, and to then be in your sphere of influence and
Okay.
to grow within it, get problem solved, and eventually make a sale. And if you're putting out a get my 15 best tips on XYZ and ABC in your checklist, you're going to get onesies and twosies.
Hmm.
If you have a webinar, you could get a couple hundred, 50 to 150 or more organically. If you do a panel or a co-branded webinar with somebody who is willing to promote it, those numbers can, double. And if you do a summit, now you're talking about working with 15 to 25, maybe 30 speakers. And now you're looking at a list build between 1,000 to 3,000,
Mm.
4,000 organically without a paid dollar in sight,
Wow.
right? But you need to choose which one you want to get into. So if you have a course that you want to launch, like in your example, you need to create a list injection prior to.
Okay.
Okay. So if you're going to do the onesie and twosie lead magnet, that better be ready 6 months in advance or 3 months in advance. And you're talking about it consistently to get the kind of results that, say, a webinar would do in
Mm.
a week.
Right.
Right. And if you want to get the 1,000 to 3,000 or 4,000 people that you would get from a summit, then you need to have a combination of these types of lead magnets and webinars to create and amass the kind of numbers you would get on a summit.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. So when you work with people, you mentioned you're doing CMO work, which is awesome. What are the types of things? So let's just say somebody's listening and they have a business, whatever, it could be a service business, it could be a
Mhm.
product business, but they do the standard, they do webinars, they have a lead magnet, a website, maybe they do, I don't know what they do. But how would you come into a company to determine if like what you do with this email injection or list injection could help them?
I am the leaky boat fixer, right? So it doesn't matter. I mean, I can come into a business and first of all, I start with an audit.
Okay.
I audit the business, right? Take 30 days. I audit the business top to bottom, left to right, and I find the leaky boat. It doesn't matter if, Michelle, you're like, Jenny, I need an extra 200 leads every single month. I can bring you leads, but if they're leaking out of your leaky boat somewhere, it's completely inefficient.
What's the point?
Exactly. So I do my audit. I find the leaky areas. I plug all those holes first. That's the first part of working, with a CMO. Or at least me.
Mhm.
I fix all those holes, all the processes, all the issues. Then we get the leads,
Okay.
right? And it doesn't matter what business it is. Like right now, I'm working with a SaaS platform as their CMO. I'm working with a law firm as their CMO.
Right.
They're completely different, but they have the exact same problems,
Yeah, they do.
right? And then the next step is once you fix that leaky boat and you find out where all the opportunities are and you're fixing where the leads are leaking out, you can then focus on the lead growth. And while you're fixing the leaky boat, you're fixing the lead magnets if they need to be refreshed. You're checking the landing pages to make sure those are actually going to convert. I just did a landing page audit for one of my clients with 30 landing pages. I'm redoing all of them, all of them. And I'm even also doing the downloads. I'm redoing all the downloads because the downloads aren't going to convert and they don't have like sexy titles. They're what to do if to get this. And it's
Right.
like, so, and, when they were designed, nobody was thinking of them as a conversion
Mm.
tactic, right? So your lead magnet, even though somebody's downloading a checklist, should still have an intro page with all of your information and how to contact you,
Mhm.
special pull-out tips that have a CTA to book a call or check out the thing or check out your website. And all those are missed opportunities. It's part of the leaky boat. So if you audit it and you find these and you fix them, and then all the leads that you bring in stay in your system and your sphere of influence, and sales go up.
Yeah. It's so crucial. And lately, and I don't know how much of this you deal with, but a lot has been changing with email marketing too, with
Huge.
restrictions, more and more restrictions. I mean, even just what was it this month? Google and
Google and
Yahoo,
Yahoo.
yeah, started. So, for people like me who've been building a list since 2009, I mean, that's a big deal because
Yes.
first of all, what worked back then does not work now. And second of all, if they haven't really engaged in the last, call it 30 days, it's almost as if they're not even on your list, right? So it's now more than ever, I think, so important for companies and people and individuals to realize that it's not just about getting a lead. I mean, you have to
Yeah.
make sure that it's not about building a list as much anymore. It is, but it's the right people on your list. It's about the people engaging in what you're doing versus just having them get your emails. Am I wrong on that?
No, you're completely right. And you brought up a really good topic about once they get on your list and, maybe if they're on there for 30 days and they're not really there because they haven't engaged, you need to kind of like reverse the mirror a little bit. They may have entered their name and email on a landing page to receive something you wanted them to get. However, what did you do once you had them? Did you
Mm.
throw them in the general newsletter box and they just get the whatever it is? Did you throw them in the podcast newsletter box and they get the podcast every week? Was that what they signed up for?
Mm,
So if it's not, then you should have workflows and automations that are giving them different content
yeah.
so that relates only to them, right? So I always say, like, don't put everybody in your email list in your newsletter because they probably didn't want it. You should create the opportunity for them to get the newsletter by asking for permission. So this is my permission-based marketing piece, right? Ask for permission. If they say yes, put them in. If they don't, then you continue to nurture them only in the vein that they sort of like acquiesced and said, I want,
Yes. Yeah.
right? And then you're speaking to that problem. But like, if not, then you're going to have people going, I signed up for, Joanne such and such. And now I'm getting this. Like, I really don't see there's a disconnect and you're going to lose that person.
Mm. It's interesting. I know the challenges I've faced, but we help a lot of authors, many of which have never had they're starting all this, and it seems
Yeah.
so overwhelming to them. And even you just saying all this stuff, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, the amount of work to go into building all that out and building out the different
But that's
auto.
why you have a VA or a team, right? Like I work with authors too. And I actually have publishers that come to me and book agents that say, build this author's list. We can get them a better deal when we shop their book around.
Exactly. Right. It's all about the platform when it
It's
comes,
all exactly.
unless they're
So
going to, self-publish but if a traditionally published author, I mean, they're never going to be
yeah,
acknowledged if they can't prove their platform. So
exactly.
it all goes,
Exactly. So yeah, there's work involved, but you reap that reward for ages and ages. And you can do it just basically on, just having a VA
yeah,
or a
I-
small team.
or a small team. Right. So could you give, just a couple tips, like if somebody whether they have a list that maybe just is stale, old, needs to be cleaned up, or maybe they have no list at all and they're really starting to build their platform, what advice would you give? Like, are there two, three, four, five things that you would say, like, you must do this first, or what would you suggest?
Oh gosh. Okay. There's quite a few things there. What I would tell everybody, and that's a great question. I love stumpy questions that make me think.
Yeah, I was gonna say I didn't prep you for that question, but
No, no, I don't want to be prepped. Give me the hard stuff any day. What I would recommend that people do is not overcomplicate it. Again, we have those two levers. We don't do enough on one side and we overcomplicate it on the other, right? So the simplicity of what people want is what you give them. They have one little problem that needs to be fixed. Okay, well, let's take authors.
Yep,
They want to get their book in front of more people.
that's right.
How do they do that? If they have no list and they have nothing, they've written a really cool book, right? Best book ever, but they have nobody to put it in front of them.
Mhm.
The easiest thing they can start to do is engage and network with other people in a non-salesy, spammy, crappy way, right? So creating authentic relationships and finding a group of people they can mastermind with
Mm.
that will that are don't be the smartest person in the room. Basically, you want other people in the room that are equally, if not better, and smarter than you. And connect with those people and mastermind with those people because they're going to keep you on your toes.
Mm. So true.
And that's going to be a really great start. Uh, Seeing what other people are doing is great, but never mimic and never copy. Because what worked for, I worked with an author years ago who was the wife of an incredibly famous rock star.
Okay.
So she wrote a health and wellness book. Just her name alone sold the book. Like her picture on the cover, she was gorgeous and all that. Her name on the book sold the book.
Wow.
We don't all have that opportunity.
Mhm.
right? So what is it that you're going to do? Because you can't copy what that person did. She sold books en masse because of her reputation and the person that she was, obviously married to. If you don't have that, you can't copy it.
Yeah.
So how are you going to approach it? What are you going to do that's unique? What's going to be your unique feature that you're going to be able to talk about and connect with people about? And every author knows the secret to connecting with people is story. So what's
Yes.
your story? And developing and really working that muscle of connecting with people, masterminding with people, networking with people, and those opportunities start to come. And also get on as many podcasts that are in your niche as possible. Michelle, you're not going to believe this, but I just saw in a Facebook group that I'm in a guy post, and he goes, I'm saying yes to every opportunity right now. I'm saying yes to every opportunity. And I was like, and I was just reading the comments. I didn't say anything. And he's like, yeah, I'll be on every podcast. Every person who wants to have me on their podcast in the next 90 days, I'll say yes to. I was like, that is horrible. That is a terrible strategy because, the guy who has a podcast about, I don't know, true crime
Yeah.
shouldn't have you on there. You're
Right.
writing a marketing book.
Right. And it
So
has to be
those kind of
aligned.
tactics don't work.
Mhm.
Yes.
But podcasting, I do believe I think it's a strategy. It's not. There's no one thing that works. People always ask, "Well, what's the one thing I have to do?" Well, there's not just one thing. I mean,
No.
I'm a big believer in obviously a book, but I love podcasting. I love speaking. I love masterminding. What you're saying, couldn't agree more. But it's not just one thing that's going to make it happen.
No. No, but it doesn't have to be all things either, right? So think of it as a skill set, right? So if you learn how to boil an egg,
Mhm.
the first time you do it, you're like, oh my gosh, okay, this is a little harder than I thought, or you're boiling an egg, right? But it doesn't mean that tomorrow you're going to be able to make eggs Florentine with, all the sauces and blah, 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 right? You start with boiling an egg. The next time you're like, okay, now I'm going to make toast with this, or then I'm going to try a sauce, and then I'm going to try this. So same thing applies to building up your, sphere of influence or your reputation or your authority.
Yes.
You start with one thing, you get okay at it. You don't have to be perfect at it. You get okay at it. And then you can add on the next thing. Don't try 5 things at once. Don't be on every platform,
Mm.
right? Don't speak everywhere. Don't get on every podcast. Start small and then add on those skills as you get some proficiency.
Mm. I
Not
love.
perfection, just proficiency. And then you can add the next thing.
I love it. What is one of your, and again didn't kind of give you this heads up on these questions, but what's one book or podcast or something that is your go-to that you enjoy, like you're learning, because we're always learning from someone else, right? And I've learned, I mean, I think everyone listening has learned a lot today about what you do and how email and all that applies. But what's something that, where are you finding good resources and things to help you continue to build your authority?
I'm always, I mean, I love to consume podcasts.
Mhm.
Funny enough, it's the podcast my partner tells me to listen to because he's the purveyor of podcasts. He will find the best ones and then he'll be like, "Oh, did you listen to this or do you want to listen to it?" And then he'll send me links. Um, because I just he's so much better at it.
But yeah,
But
my
there's
husband's that person for me too. Like I don't know
yeah,
how he hears about all these podcasts, but I'm like, okay, I'll listen to it.
yep, absolutely. So I listen to I think it's called How I Built This with Guy Raz. That's one of
Such a
them.
great one. Such a great
Super
one.
good one. Yeah, I really love that one. Obviously, in my early days when I was starting to build, I listened to Amy Porterfield's podcast religiously.
Amazing.
I would actually go on walks, like 9 kilometer walks, and I would take notes on my phone as I was walking. And I would send it, like I would text myself these notes, and then I would get home and implement them.
Oh, I love it.
So, yeah, that one was big for me back in the day. And then I love, in terms of books, I love Seth Godin. So I love Seth Godin's podcast. I like his newsletter and I like his books. I read his books.
Mhm.
I think they're great. He's the original. He's, the person who invented email marketing basically.
Totally.
And he deserves all the authority on that one.
Every day for how many years has it been now? I can't even remember, but
I
it's
don't know, but it's
oh,
69. I think I watched a podcast slash interview on YouTube with him the other day, and he mentioned that he'd been going, I don't know how old it was. I think it was 18 months old, that he has a record of 6,900 days consecutively where which obviously has grown. But yeah, it's been, years.
That's a perfect example of, look, you start somewhere small. When he started his blog, who would have known it would be this, that he would be as big as he is today, but he just did it one day at a time. And that's kind of the whole point, I think, of with marketing. It's
Mhm.
it's not having all the answers, all the shiny objects and doing what, this big person's doing over here. Well, if it works for them, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you. But I like the basics that you kind of mentioned about, it is about building those relationships and, leveraging other people's lists. That's not a bad thing. Like some people are like, well, are you using someone? No,
No.
it's how can you bring value to somebody else's community? And if you can
Mhm.
bring value, then it's a win-win-win. It's a
Mhm.
win for you, it's a win for the host, and it's also the win for their community.
Mhm.
So I love that because I do believe that's how I built my business initially, actually. Not having a clue what I was doing. I was like, well, let's talk. I don't know.
Nobody has a
How
clue.
can I help yours?
Yeah, just do all the coffee chats you can.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Jenny, this has been so awesome. I so appreciate it. And I mean, my wheels are spinning too. Like, I mean, I've been doing this a long time, but at the same time, it's like there's just always more improvement and more you can do. And so I know people listening gathered a lot of great information. So thank you so much for being on the show.
It's been my pleasure. And I'm so glad if I can get somebody to think a bit, invigorate them, get them to take action, then I've done my job.
Yes, you have. And you did it well. So thank you for being on the show.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, that is it for this show, this episode of the Power of Authority Spotlight. Everyone listening, I know you want to build your authority, and I know we're doing it through different ways, whether it's a book, a speaking event, a podcast, consulting. But ultimately, it is about the people we serve. And if you can serve people digitally through email, of course, through social media and all that too. But it is so, so important is to build the community, build the people that want to hear from you. And Jenny did a great job helping us figure out how to get started and keep it going. So we'll see you all next time on the Power of Authority Spotlight. Thanks so much for listening to the Power of Authority Spotlight. If you are a successful founder, entrepreneur, business owner, or leader that's getting results and making a difference, and you'd like to be on this program, please visit performancepublishinggroup.com/podcast to apply. That's performancepublishinggroup.com/podcast. Also, if you got something out of this interview, please share this episode. Just do a quick screenshot with your phone and text it to a friend or post it on the socials. If you know someone that would be a great guest, tag them on social media to let them know about the show and include the hashtag #ThePowerOfAuthoritySpotlight. I love seeing your posts and guest suggestions. We are regularly putting out new episodes and content, so make sure you don't miss any episodes by subscribing. Your thumbs up, ratings, and reviews go a long way to help promote the show and mean a lot to me and my team. Want to know more? Go to our websites, performancepublishinggroup.com or michelleprince.com, and follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.